Recording?
Alright, good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:38. We'll now start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Go ahead. I believe in that. I agree.
Can we have a roll call, please? And let's have a short moment of silence, please. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Diaz?
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez? Commissioner Molnar? Here. Commissioner Munoz? Here. Commissioner Fisher? Here. Commissioner Nguyen?
Here.
Commissioner Velez?
Present.
Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Commissioner Zaklama?
Here.
Chair Torres?
Here. And as a reminder, if you would like to speak tonight, there's oral communication cards at the desk there. Please fill one out and turn it into the city staff. And as a reminder, we have a 3-minute speaker limit. So first up for today, we have Mr. Frederick Sykes.
All right. You got it.
Well, thank you, everyone, all the folks that are here. Had a good turnout tonight. And I'll start by saying good evening to the chair and members of the commission, city staff, and members of the audience. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. I'm Frederick Sykes. I've lived here for 42 years in the city, and I'm also a former mayor of West Beach. You're a good one. Thank you, appreciate that. What we're asking tonight is for the commission to please make a formal presentation and request to the city council. To pass an anti-smoking ordinance regarding smoking in multi-unit residential houses. Passing this no smoking ordinance will help strengthen the no smoking policy that is already in the park. It's one of the things I want to make sure we did every time we step up for the children. That's what we were trying to do, step up for the children. And so we have that in the city park. It's also, when you go to the schools, Roland, Unified, Hacienda La Puente, you'll see the signs posted, no smoking. So we need to move forward in doing that for where the children sleep. You know, we do it for where they play, on the playgrounds. We do it for where they study in the school. Well, this is long overdue. We need to do it where they sleep. And some folks who haven't had the pleasure of living in an apartment complex, you're close. You're close. It's a close setup situation. In particular apartments. And even in my neighborhood where I live, I have a small home. And those quarters are close. When someone smokes in my neighborhood, because we do have small lots, hey, it's in my nose, it's in my face. And I have to make a choice. Do I want to smoke? Or do I want to go indoors and wait and see if he's going to finish his smoking and then I can come back out and do my lawn or do whatever I'm doing? So this is a real impact. And children have no voice. Now I'm one of 7 children. My parents smoked when I was a kid, man, a long time ago. You know, this is back in the 50s and 60s. My parents smoked. Everywhere we went, people were smoking. My dad is now 93 years old, and recently, when this subject came up, I said, let me call my dad and ask him a question. Because as a little kid, you don't ask him to stop smoking, or why did you stop smoking? You just let him do his thing. So now I'm older, and you know, he's 93, and I say, hey Dad, you used to smoke when we were little kids. What happened? He says, I stopped smoking because I started learning what it was doing to us. The smell, the malodor, lung cancer, tongue, throat. So, education is what made my parents stop. So, you guys have the experience to speak from that, because most of us have that. And please pass that, put this ordinance forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Peter.
Hello everybody, my name is Peter Din, and today I'm going to be making a comment about my concerns regarding the overview and summary of the West Covina Health Department. In the overview, it is stated that the department will guarantee a healthy community through public education, specifically as it pertains to environment and policy. Furthermore, the summary also clearly states that the services provided by this health department will include clean water and air quality and compliance to environmental health and sanitation standards. So I guess my concern regarding that entire overview and summary and all the blanketed statements within it is how are we expected to meet these environmental regulations and do our own part in protecting a world that is statistically and inevitably warming, especially when we've ignored our own municipal policies when pertaining to the BKK landfill site. According to public record information in regards to BKK, we have failed to repair a stormwater retention base that is considered critical infrastructure in our city. We have violated the California Environmental Quality Act passed in 1970 by altering a water stream and subsequently the habitat around that water stream, and also destroying more habitat to make way for a magnificent golf course on that land in 2013. That was 8 years ago. I want to ask each and every one of you to go up to where BKK landfill is and see if anybody's hitting hole-in-ones or hitting anything in general. No one is, because the golf course doesn't exist. It's a failed plan, just like how I think this health department idea will be a failed plan as well. Finally, in violation of the agreement with the Department of Fish and Wildlife Services in the United States, West Covina has failed to restore at least 67 acres of the BKK landfill that they were in agreement to restore and they haven't done. So I guess if you're asking me why I keep talking about BKK, it's because I think it's the elephant in the room. BKK is arguably the greatest public health and environmental risk in this city, and if us as a city and our health department is committing to mitigating these risks, we have to commit to start going with our agreements right now, to start going with our compliances and regulations right now, which we are not. We have seen natural disasters occur around us. I know people personally, their houses, everything they have has been gone because of wildfires, not too far away from where we are. These environmental disasters can happen where we live in our neighborhoods. And how do we expect to have a health department if we're not preventing those disasters from happening now, right? Can we make this commitment to the public health, which includes environmental health, if we have not been complying with our own regulatory agreements? I don't think so. I think it's obvious that that's where the bar has to start. We need to look at where the floor is and see if we're above ground. And right now, I think realistically, we're not. Financially, we're not. And when it comes to BKK in general, we're not. Also, when it comes to the properties that are built on BKK, such as Big League Dreams, we all know what happened with that grand reopening fiasco. We need to focus on our finances. We need to focus on our regulatory compliances right now, instead of trying to rush ourselves into this health department issue. And I'm here speaking as a resident in West Covina. My family has been residents for 2 decades, saying that I'm against this health department and that I feel like we should focus on the issues we have in this city right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Gloria and Laura.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I read that West Covina Health Department overview and summary 2021. I don't know how many, but how many other people have read it? It says a lot about working with other health departments, organizations, and facilities, including the LA County Health Department, which surprises me because we're getting away from them. There are no measurable goals, nor does the city believe that West Covina taxpayers will pay, because We're gonna get money from grants, fees, and federal money. Oh, yes, I know how that goes. West Covina does not say what they have done in the past for West Covina residents as far as it pertains to environmental health or the health of the residents. Is that because they have failed as far as BKK landfill is concerned? Because I believe they have failed considerably as far as BKK landfill. I live close to BKK landfill. I can tell you what happened to cause that BKK landfill to close down. And what has to be done has never been done, especially when Mr. Wu didn't even know what the regulations were. No one did. And recently, Simpoli, the hotel builder, visited BKK. They were not supposed to visit BKK, yet Wu and the city manager did not know. So I am fearful of the city health department in this city because you can't do the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson?
Okay, I also have a health issue to share that might interest some seniors. I have in my lap a federal district court lawsuit of the Northern District of Alabama, America's Frontline Doctors Plaintiffs versus Xavier Becerra, Secretary of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. It was filed 9 days ago. It's a plaintiff's motion for preliminary injunction. The suit is trying to revoke the emergency use authorization which allows the guinea pigs to be jabbed. They're saying, this article talks about the suit, a bombshell. New lawsuit claims 45,000 vaccine deaths being hidden. There's a VAERS database, but a whistleblower at the Medicare department says that the published estimates of the death toll 3 days after being vaccinated is 45,000, not the official total is about 9,000. So anyway, that's a federal court action filed 9 days ago to try to stop the jab. The second lawsuit, two students, that's a motion. This is a complaint for declaratory relief and injunctive relief. It's suing the University of California, and it was filed 2 days ago. And two UC students don't want to be kicked out of school. They got the COVID virus and their natural immunity got them over it. And they don't want to take the jab because they have antibodies and they don't want to be kicked out of school. So this lawsuit is in the Eastern Federal District, and it's being brought, it was filed 2 days ago. And there's another lawsuit that's filed out of Sacramento. It was filed a month ago. This names as defendants Fauci and Xavier Becerra again, and it involves the University of California. I mean, I misspoke. It's the state college and university system. And the issue is people that before their jab, they should be pre-screened, because if you have antibodies, there's a big chance that you might have an adverse reaction. So that's 3 federal lawsuits, and since the censorship is so rabid nowadays, and we have infotainment instead of real news, I thought some people might appreciate some real information. So that's the end of my 3 minutes.
Thank you.
I tried to give you real information for 3 minutes, and I'm not even a talking head on TV. They're better looking than I am.
If anyone else would like to speak and hasn't filled out a card, feel free to just stand up and say your piece. You can fill the card later, otherwise, okay.
Just for the record.
Yeah.
I have, my name is Minerva Avila, I'm a West Covina resident. So I'm just concerned about how this new plan will affect school district, specifically kids in West Covina Unified and other districts. I did read the plan as well, and so there's a section in the community health part that reads that there are going to be different programs will be provided outside, programs will be provided on-site and off-site, including schools, churches, temples, hospitals, and health centers. Other delivery methods will include printed materials, local Spectrum TV Channel 3, and the internet. Can someone explain what that means, the Spectrum? Given that our population, we have some kids that don't even have the internet, assuming that they have cable, I think is probably, I don't know where the data came from or the reason behind that. If someone can explain what that means. Other delivery methods will include printed materials, local Spectrum TV Channel 3, and internet. And also, someone had mentioned as well, the plan has a lot of other various, some local programs or partnering with local programs, local organizations. That's fairly vague. It would be very helpful to have more detailed information to compare what the city municipal health department will do that is different than what is currently provided by the county. So this vague language doesn't help. It just gives the impression that the city still doesn't know what it is that it wants to do and how it's going to do it. So thank you. If I can get some answers, I would greatly appreciate it.
All right, anybody else like to speak? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment. So I know that in different settings we address questions, or is that a time, is this a time that we could ask questions based on public comment of the staff?
Do you usually do comments? No.
Okay.
Oral communication is not really a dialogue between the public and commissioners.
Okay, so can I ask a question, I guess?
Sure. Of staff or the public?
No, staff. So a few concerns, and I don't know how you want to differentiate it, and call it theirs or mine. If it's supposed to be called mine, then I could own it.
Okay.
However you want to do it.
Okay.
So I like to bring up things that brought up in public comment. So I know we'll get to those items, but let me see. Okay, so I guess the only question I have is the BKK thing came up. So is there any sort of, and this is a question from myself as well, is there any sort of connection to BKK and LA County Public Health? There's no connection as far as oversight or anything like that?
The LA County Health Department does not do oversight for the landfill.
Okay, and that's DTSC, right?
The Department of DTSC, yeah.
Yeah, so then LA County Public Health has no role at all for the oversight of the BKK?
Not of the landfill closure operation. So it's the regulatory agencies, CalRecycle, and the Department of Toxic Substance Control, DTSC, that oversee the two landfills, because there are two landfills up there.
Right, okay. Okay, and then the others we can talk about when we get to there. All right, so moving on to item number 2.
Item 1.
Oh, sorry, item number 1, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments, any concerns with the meeting minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve? Okay. Commissioner
I'll
Lyons?
second it.
Okay, and we have a second from Commissioner Reyes. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Diaz? Yes. Commissioner Gutierrez? Commissioner Munoz? Commissioner Fisher?
Approve.
Commissioner Nguyen?
Aye.
Commissioner Velez?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Commissioner Zaklama?
Unfortunately, I was there, so.
Abstain?
Oh yeah, that might be something to note for Commissioner Diaz, because this is his first meeting as well. So I think for this one, since you weren't here the last meeting, yeah,
I believe you're still allowed to vote. on
they're
it.
still allowed? Okay,
Yeah,
so you
you're
can
not,
just-
it's more process than,
Okay, got it.
you're not.
Vice Chair Mueller? Aye. And Chair Torres?
Aye.
Motion passes 7 and 2 abstaining.
All right, thank you. On to new business. Item number 2, recommendations for 12 policy provisions for 100% smoke-free multi-housing. And that was, I'll let Paulina address it, but that was to be presented by Elsa Reno, Project Coordinator, and West Covina Community Alliance Network members.
So, thank you, Chair. Staff will be pulling items 2 and 3 from the agenda tonight.
All right. So, are we allowed to ask questions for those?
No, we're pulling them from the agenda.
Well, procedurally, like why we're pulling them and what's the context we're pulling them?
I can explain why we're pulling them. At this time, these 2 items will not, we will be pulling them as they're not necessarily within the responsibilities of the Community Services Commission.
There's putting on the agenda. What, it's on the agenda?
Yeah,
Pulling
so,
those 2 items.
right,
Chair.
and Paulina and I had discussed this as well, but I thought it was important for everyone to know that these 2 items were determined to not be within our realm of oversight. They're, like we discussed, there probably was some confusion early on. This item had been agendized and then it had been put on the last agenda. And then from my understanding from our conversation well, I don't know if you want to speak to Susie as well, the transition, but as Susie was overseeing us and then now Paulina oversees us, I think that interpretation was different, right? So now that Paulina is overseeing us, her interpretation of what do they call it, the guidebook for our commission, she determined that these 2 items weren't under our purview. And that's why they're being pulled.
That's because they don't want to
So-
discuss them. Is that because you don't want the public to be discussing this out loud, or you don't want, I don't understand.
It's related to the oversight of, I guess, what's within our realm of oversight. So if it's publicly available, the commission manual, and if you read through the requirements and you can see that it's very vague, so.
Yeah, so it's up to interpretation, and so they're
Right.
interpreting
Yeah.
now that it's not worth
Right,
discussing.
so-
They don't want to discuss it with the public.
That's right.
That's how this whole health
Yeah.
department has been.
And procedurally, the way it works, so everybody knows, is as a commission, we can make recommendations or ask for things to be agendized. But the director for the department or for the community services, which in this case was Paulina, has oversight as far as determining what can be agendized and the meetings. And so we can make recommendations for things, and then she determines if they fall within her purview.
Well, this is the second meeting we've had to try to join the hearing on this, and that couldn't be figured out between the first and the second meeting?
That, again, it was, I think, related to staff changes, interpretation of the oversight we have. And our previous manager, or I guess you would call her an advisor, determined, when I spoke to them, determined that we can have it. So Pauline's interpretation was just a little different.
We are providing updates at the city council meetings. There is a website that has the information on the updates on the health department progress.
What's the problem with transparency though? 'Cause that's what I think we're talking about here, is lack of transparency.
Like I said, this is not a back and forth. We're providing you information where the items
Yeah,
are.
because it's
one
never a
after the
back
other.
and forth.
Right, so if you
Never
have
back.
any issues, feel free to reach out to staff or your council member to discuss it.
Well, that's why we're here, because we don't hear from you, and we only hear a one-sided story. So we thought this was the opportunity for us to come and interact and hear and open.
And talk about it. That's what we want. We want to talk, we want to have a dialogue. We don't want this youth, and we want a dialogue.
Since it was agendized,
I got better things to do with my time.
Robert,
Exactly.
how does it go from one person to another and the interpretation changes? That just doesn't make, if it's policy, it should have been consistent from day one.
Right.
For the powers that be that are sitting now in power to decide that the prior interpretation wasn't good enough, when they already come with a load of baggage of not wanting to be upfront with the residents, I think it's really bad politics.
one thing.
I don't see the problem with discussing it, or at least letting the commission.
Is if you guys would like to, express and be heard on your issues with the public health department, would be to go to the city council meeting.
Yeah.
We did that.
We do. We do.
We know that.
Because the city manager did indicate that he does welcome feedback and he wants to hear
Right.
from people.
Right.
So if you go to the city council meetings and you want to voice your opinion on the city council, on the public health department, that would be the best avenue, because as I mentioned, at this point, it's been determined that.
I've already received that kiss. It's a kiss of
Make
death.
public comments on the agenda.
Discussion. They don't have a reply.
What?
So next, we'll move on to item number 4, which will be Measure H, homeless program update.
Thank you, Esther.
Okay, and that will be by Kelly McDonald.
Thank you. Good evening. Just providing a brief update on the Measure H programs the city is currently administering. Measure H is a county measure that was passed. Measure H was a county measure passed by us. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, can you speak a little bit louder? It's hard to hear.
Dropping the mask. I should have brought a microphone. I'm sorry. I'll try. The Measure H is a county measure that was passed by about 70% of the voters in March 2017. And the intent of that was to, or the result of that was to raise sales tax by 1/4 cent, and for the purpose of preventing and combating homelessness. And the measure was expected to generate $3.2 billion over a 10-year period for which this measure is in place. Prior to that, the county did some stakeholder outreach, 30 cities, 100 community groups, and developed an action plan, and with various strategies in 6 key areas to prevent and combat homelessness. And in June 17, the first budget was allocated, and in 2018, the county released a request for proposals to cities to respond to these various areas. And so City of West Covina applied, submitted proposals in a couple of areas. We worked with the San Gabriel Valley COG, and they offered us a grant writer. We worked, in the first case, we collaborated with 4 other cities, Azusa, Covina, Glendora, and Duarte, and established a cohort, and our proposal was to have a co-located housing navigator, which would which would do outreach to homeless individuals and get them connected to services. And the way that people are connected to services in the county is there's a coordinated entry system. And so there's an assessment that is done, and they're keyed into the system, and that's how folks are directed. We didn't have anything out here in the San Gabriel Valley to be able to do that. We ended up sending them downtown or to El Monte to be able to get into that system. And so we wrote that proposal with a grant writer, and we were awarded $320,000. That was amongst the 5 cities. We also had to put in a match of in-kind services that we costed the office space and supplies and things of that nature. And then we also had to put in a cash match, each of the 5 cities. And so we're currently going through that. The county has extended the performance period twice. It's currently intended to end at the end of this calendar year, December 31st. And so we have what is called a housing navigator. They're out in the field predominantly. They work with our homeless outreach team or officer in the police department, and they maintain some office hours here at City Hall to be able to help people out and get them into services. And so each of the 5 cities has a navigator to provide that service. We also applied for a hotel voucher program to be able to increase the interim housing by getting people temporary housing as they work through. The intent was to provide housing while people were working through a housing plan to get them to permanent housing. So it was working in conjunction with the Navigator program. So the Navigator was going to make assessments and enroll people in this program, and they would have a place to stay while they work through the program of permanent housing. And so we were awarded $100,000 for that, and we're continuing to work through that program, and that also ends in December. And I've attached to the report a couple of, or the most recent program updates or performance reports. The city in both cases contracted with Union Station Homeless Services, which is a vetted provider that the county has vetted as provider of these services. And so we've been working with them on both of these programs. We've contracted them for both of these programs. That's the update I have for it. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
All right, thank you. I have a question. Say, for instance, someone comes up to any of us and say they need housing. Who do we contact for that? Do we call the city, and what department do we call? I mean, what are the details to refer someone for housing?
For housing?
For lodging on the hotels for the homeless.
Well, they have to be assessed by the navigator to get into that program. So
that's what I want to know. And who's the navigator?
Christian Gonzalez, who's with the Union Station.
With whom?
With Union Station Homeless Services. They're out of Pasadena, but he works in our area.
Oh, okay. Does he have a phone number?
Yes, he does. And you can also contact communities or public services directly, and we would pass that information on, or we'd probably start with our police department or Hope team to be able to start that process, since they coordinate with the navigation.
Is that information online on our website?
I believe it's part of under police department.
So that information is available on our website under the police department.
Okay. Under the police department?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Under our Hope team.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
how do we track the success? You've mentioned a lot of stats, but how do we track the success for West Covina? Because for me, it appears that there's more homeless, not less. And the program's 3 years. It's been 3 years running.
Yeah,
So,
a year and a half.
so how do we track the success within our city?
Well, we set some performance measures initially, based on the professional opinion of this group. We had no experience with, the folks who are involved with it have no experience really setting those kind of metrics. And so working with this homeless firm or organization, they helped us identify the metrics for the proposal. And so we're using their metrics, and then they collect the data and pass them on to us. And it's true that you see a lot of folks, and they engage people, and it takes a while to build that relationship that folks are comfortable to work with them.
So I agree, they engage them. I think that we're doing our part, but I guess the results are in the pudding. How many are we pulling off the streets and being successful with is my curiosity.
Well, yeah, it's relatively small, because you have, over the course you're establishing a relationship with people who you're reaching out to want to be helped, and that's key. Yeah, because they're finding a lot of folks are service resistant. They like how they're living.
Thank you.
How is the homeless situation separated from the housing element in our health department? I mean, health department is supposed to have a housing portion, and now we got a homeless portion. Are those two totally separated?
Concerning the health department?
Yeah, the health department has a housing element.
Sorry.
And the homeless is a housing problem. So how do the two separate themselves?
I think
Are they going to become one and the same, or are they going to be still separate?
I think the general question, if I'm getting it correct, is like how would the health department issue impact homelessness? Like how we address homelessness?
First we got to decide whether they're separate or whether they come together under one or the other program. And once we decide that, then we know who's going to handle it. I mean, how it's getting handled. Who starts going out getting the grant money, and how is the grant money spent after that?
Relative to homeless? Relative to homeless? You mean homeless?
Yeah.
Grants for the homeless?
Yeah.
Well, we keep watching and waiting for a next release of requests for proposals from the county. This was just one. They've been collecting taxes since 2018, and this is the only request. This was the only opportunity to apply for both these areas that they made available. Board of Supervisors just approved the funding recommendations for the next cycle, and a lot of the money which previously flowed through the county to cities will be flowing through the COGS, and so we'll be looking for those opportunities which should occur in the fall and for funding to start the first part of next year.
So homeless is not a part of LA County Health Department? Yes or no?
There may be aspects, but primarily the money that's coming in for Measure H, if you look, I'm sorry I don't have the information with me, there's probably an aspect that they do fund, but they fund a lot of county departments. Predominantly it's LAHSA, which is the Los Angeles Housing Services Authority, and that's kind of a joint a joint thing between the city and the county of Los Angeles?
Because I'm kind of confused. You know, going over some of the requirements, homeless, is it, I assume that we're dealing with it as a separate entity, and it's not a part of any health, even West Covina Health Department, I would assume. Is that true?
That's my understanding as well.
Kelly, for the data collected, number of unique persons engaged is unique to the year to date or unique to the month. Meaning if they were engaged 6 months ago or 4 months ago, do they qualify as a new unique person within this month period? Or is that unique to the record-keeping system that has been put in place?
It's unique to the period. I'm sorry, it's unique to the...
in general.
In general, yeah, or for the term, yes.
Because I think that's really good, because I think you could track progress as you were asking progress. If we just had another data point, and this isn't for us or staff, this is just recommendations to people coordinating the data, which I know is 5 cities combined, so it's a little bit more than just this conversation. But I think a really good data point would be individuals engaged, because you can measure that against unique individuals engaged. Because I think what everybody's trying to get to is the zero count, which is just new members of the homeless community versus existing members. Once we get that to a net zero, I think they can measure progress. So I think just the data keeping can be revealing to future planning. But I think to just address whether there's progress, just generally 59 members engaged year to date unique, and only 2 in May, maybe some sort of glimmers, but 2 little data points to really draw conclusions. So it's just like a note for when you're discussing with the other people that are putting the data together. It's a good data point to have. You could really draw a lot more assessments of.
Thank you.
I'm reading this as of May 2021. So, but it could be just for May. So it's not clear. It's not clear what we're looking at.
Well, you have it's as of May, but then you have a year-to-date column on the far right.
Yeah, they did it right where they did it per period, because the numbers will change. But then it's good that they put in there, but there is year-to-date data as well. And I think that's what everybody's trying to get to, that net zero. So I have a general question. So there's often comments from the public and in the community about Measure H funding. So I know you went over the general overview of Measure H, but could you briefly kind of make us understand why Measure H is restricted and when it's used for? Because there's a lot of commentary about, oh, well, we're not getting any of our Measure H money, or oh, all that money we're paying into, we're not getting it, and why we're not getting it, and then I guess the requirements, roadblocks, kind of that whole explanation.
Well, because it's a county measure, the county sets the rules, and they've set. They did an outreach initially to stakeholders, and they developed an action plan, identified some strategies, and then they decide how the money's going to get spent. And it's a board of supervisors decides how they're going to allocate the funds, and we get a portion of it. A lot of the money is focused in the county programs, in the big cities and the continuums of let's see, how much was there available? Yeah, I think it would, you're looking at 3.2 billion that they're expecting to generate, or half a bill a year, and so far we've got, you know, a fraction of 300,000 and another 100,000. So there is there's some truth to that.
Okay. And so I know you were saying they put a lot of that into their programming and their approach. So then I guess what would be like the secondary benefit we're getting? So the narrative seems to be that we're not getting much, right? A few $100,000, but can you tangibly say how we're benefiting from all those county programs? Because we do get a lot of resources that are utilized for like our Hope Team and RASA. So is there any way to quantify that and say, you know, this is how much we're really getting? Because the narrative has been like, well, we're only getting 300,000, and we're only getting 7. But at least from my perspective, it seems like we're getting a lot of services that aren't they're not being kind of laid out and said, you know what, the equivalent to what we're getting is this much. Because I think we are getting a lot, right?
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I mean, we're not getting a lot directly, we're getting a lot indirectly. We have the LASA team is out here working with our PD quite a bit. We have DMH and Department of Mental Health is out here. So a lot of the county departments are working in the agency, or working with the agency, and then we'll refer folks to the county as well. So it's just, I don't know how we would quantify that, but it's an accurate statement that, you know, there are indirect benefits.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, because that I think would be very helpful for the public to know if there is some sort of mechanism where we could quantify it and say we're, you know, getting the equivalent to $5 million a year, $2 million, whatever it is, in services provided by it, because we're indirectly getting those Measure H funds. And I think that's very important to kind of reflect that we are seeing progress from the Measure H. So I don't know if I could ask for that as like a report or some sort of item to the commission. I could ask at the commission reports if I could get some sort of tangible idea of how much we've been getting in services.
I'll research that and see to what extent that can be modified.
Yeah, like a rough order of magnitude, whatever we can kind of pin down and say, you know, these are all the services we're getting, this is how many hours you're putting in, and it's equivalent to this, you know, rough order of magnitude per year. Yeah. And then I have one more thing. You mentioned the SGB COG.
Yes.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the SGB COG is the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. It consists of all the cities within San Gabriel Valley, and it's a joint powers authority. They all get together and they make decisions for the entire San Gabriel Valley. So the SGB COG you mentioned is now the, I guess, primary recipient of Measure H, and a lot of the funding, and then they distribute it to the cities.
That's my understanding, yes, that the money for the cities will flow through the COG.
Okay, and can you provide any more detail on how that's going to work? Like, how are they going to get the funding? Are they applying for the grants? Are they going to? Is there going to be a process in the distribution? Like, how much does West Covina get? How much does Covina get versus? Is there any sort of details with that yet, or is this
not yet? It's very early on, but there was some money that was distributed that wasn't Measure H money, and they did a couple of things. They gave flat distributions to each city, and then they also did a kind of a sliding scale type of thing based on population. So they're cognizant of the different size cities and so forth.
Okay, and is there any sort of timeline yet?
Would imagine in the fall. Board of Supervisors just approved the funding recommendations on the 13th, or middle of this month. So they're moving forward. We have monthly meetings with a homeless working group from the COG, and they'll be presenting soon how they're going to lay that out and how we're going to be applying and the areas for which we can apply for.
And is there a set amount yet or not yet? That the COG will get?
In a support letter they asked us to write for them, they said 3.2 million over 18 months. So they said that there was 5 million in the January to July period in the funding recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, and an additional 10 for 22-23, which would, and that's to all COGS, but that would result in a 3.2 million to the San Gabriel Valley COG over that 18-month period.
And it was, that 18-month period would begin when?
Be January 2022 through June 2023.
And then the SGV COG is also doing the crisis response study. I'm familiar with it because I just kind of looked at it myself. Are you familiar with the crisis response study related to like how they're going to address homelessness regionally, like with a I guess a task force, similar to the whole team?
I think they may have mentioned that in one of the meetings.
Okay, so that's kind of something I wanted to talk about because I think that should kind of be more on our radar. So do you know if anyone at the staff level is involved in that? I know they're doing community outreach right now and engagement. They're doing public meetings. They're having they have an online survey. And essentially what it's trying to achieve is it's trying to get input from all the stakeholders in the region and trying to develop a plan to address homelessness regionally as opposed to city by city. And right now they're at kind of in the middle of that community engagement. So I know that they've reached out to me because I volunteered to be on their advisory kind of committee, like a stakeholder. And I forwarded some emails to the city council, just informing them, like, hey, and the city manager, letting them know that these meetings are going on. But if you're not familiar with it, that would be something that I would encourage and actually kind of ask that the staff kind of participate in. Because thus far, I've kind of got the same response for most where they're not familiar with it and they don't know what it is or what's going on. But they're trying to get input from like our public safety officials, our homelessness staff, like people that we work with in LASA, and kind of get a collection of input from all these stakeholders so that they can create this response study, which one of the main things on this response study is the CAHOOTS program, which we talked about before. And it's kind of a different approach to how we deal with homelessness, which would eliminate the officers from the approach, and it would just have like an EMT and a mental health professional. And right now, I think Eugene, Oregon is the city that is the primary, I guess, they started the program and it's kind of being implemented throughout the country. So that's one of the components of this crisis response study, to see if that's something that could work for us. And I think it was 2 meetings ago, we talked about CAHOOTS, and we recommended that the city council engage.
They've also spoke at the city council.
Yeah,
The Hoots
yeah.
group.
So I don't think I saw anything on it. I've been kind of paying attention to these council meetings, but I don't think I ever saw anything go before them. I know that Susie and I think Mike at the time were trying to work on something, but we did make a recommendation as a commission for them to engage in that process. It was not like a hard recommendation for them to take any policy action, but rather just for them to participate and engage. But I never saw that kind of before them yet. I don't know if it was lost in the shuffle, but
The recommendation did go to the city council.
Oh, I did?
Through the minutes from your commission meeting.
At the last meeting, or do you recall?
That meeting hasn't appeared on our agenda.
It hasn't?
It hasn't appeared on the consent.
Oh, then I'm mistaken.
It might be these minutes, which will go on the next.
And yeah, and that brings up another question.
Oh, yeah,
When
you're
we make
right.
a recommendation when we make a recommendation as a commission, there's times when the recommendation is, I guess, a soft recommendation. It's not very policy driven, right? But then when there's something that's actually policy driven, is there any way to separate that out and not have it kind of buried in the meeting minutes where it's an actual agenda item?
I would have to just figure that out and get back to you on that.
Okay, because the other one was the HERE commission.
Yeah, they're both on that
They're
same
both in the
meeting. So
minutes.
yes, you're right. You approved those minutes today, and then they will go to the city council.
So then, yeah, that, like, for example, the formation of a commission, if that can be a separate agenda item and have like some sort of staff report rather than just being in the meeting minutes, and many times they might not look at the meeting minutes. I don't know if they do or not, but if that could be something that can be discussed, because I think it makes sense, right, to have that.
I'll look into that and
separate
get
item.
back to you.
Okay, so yeah, that's all I had. I just wanted to, is that okay then to look into that, the crisis response study, and see if we can.
Who are you working with there?
The contact I had was Caitlin.
Okay.
Caitlin,
Yeah,
I can't remember her last name for the life of me right now, but.
Sims.
Caitlin Sims, yeah. So she's been my contact, and unfortunately, I don't have the time to kind of follow up as much as I would like, but the last time I checked, she said that there was no representation from our city at these meetings. But they're on the group. But when I look at the meeting minutes, it just says absent, absent, absent. Like nobody was going. So I would kind of want that to kind of be something that maybe we could come back in November and give an update as far as what you've learned and what kind of role we're going to play. But it might be too late by then. So maybe look into it and see what's going on right now. All right. Any other questions for Measure H?
Is the San Gabriel cog connected with the housing element? Mr. Templeton, I took the floor. I don't see why I can't pose a question. Is the housing element connected with the San Gabriel cog? And I'm asking that back to the earlier question, the relationship between the health department, the San Gabriel cog, and the homeless situation that we have. Is there a nexus here among those three? In terms of money, because that's what it boils down to.
We get arena numbers from the COG.
San Gabriel?
Yeah.
Not the Southern California.
I'm not 100% sure, but we do get our numbers, arena numbers from them, and that's obviously impacts the housing element.
As well as the homeless situation. There's the relationship between the three is kind of what I'm leaning to. And I guess that
I'm
was
not
part
sure how
of the
the
concern.
homeless situation, obviously we have.
The housing goal
Mhm.
is part parcel, even at the governor's level, related to finding housing for the homeless population. So there is a relationship.
Component.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So I think that's why the health department question is relevant in terms of the concerns the senior community commission may want to look into with regards to other elements in the community that are impacting our quality of life, right? The health, the well of the homeless situation. That's a growing problem that has not gotten better. Admittedly, the numbers are minuscule. So there's
and it's SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, that provides arena numbers.
correct. But that's not the same as the San Gabriel?
No.
Correct.
I think it's a larger area.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, so next we'll move on to our ad hoc committee reports. And also I have some questions about that, because I know that now with Susie moving out and change, how we're going to run the ad hoc committee reports. I'm assuming we don't have any?
There's no reports listed.
So we might want to reevaluate how that works. I don't know if the homelessness subcommittee has met yet. No? I know we've met for the capital improvements. And what was the other?
CDBG.
Okay, they met, right?
Right.
And then that was on our last agenda, but it went to the council already?
It's in process for the 10th, for the 10th.
Okay. So I know it was pulled from this, so then it kind of just bypassed straight to the city council.
With the ad hoc recommendation. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, maybe for you, Paulina, like how is that going to work now? The ad hoc subcommittees, and how are you going to have those meetings, or like I guess arrange those meetings?
I think we would continue arranging them the way that they've been arranged before.
There wasn't a way before that I'm familiar with. Did anyone know how like those dates were set, like who reached out to the ad hoc?
Can I?
It's up to the commission, the committees to decide when to meet.
Oh, okay.
Except on CIP and CDBG items that Kelly makes those. But the homeless would be, the committee could meet at any time
And those,
as a committee.
okay, yeah, okay, so,
So there's no date or time?
There's no
that's
date or
required?
time specific, but necessarily, like for the homeless, if there's like a presentation or like the COG is doing something that you guys wanted to attend, that could be considered a meeting. Because one or more of the committee members could go, or you could just meet individually, go have coffee and discuss how you want to go about the homeless as well, or do a Zoom. So that it's up to you when you want to meet on like the homeless one. The CIP is more entailed in funding that Kelly applies for in grants and stuff, so that would be through Kelly.
I think her Mike, as projects come up and we're looking for input in regard to CIP, then those things are done on an as-needed basis. They aren't really set. And the same with CDBG, it occurs about once a year where we put out a notice of funding availability. Organizations apply. The ad hoc committee hears presentations and makes some recommendations. And so we'd like to arrange those in spring. Typically, this year was different because of COVID and delayed timelines.
okay, so then for like ad hoc homelessness committee, you would kind of be the advisor to that, or if there was a meeting, would you be there necessarily, or would that just have to be among the subcommittee members?
I guess it would depend on the topic,
Okay.
subject matter.
Yeah, I think those are more for just the subcommittee members, yeah. Where this is the meeting where staff comes and presents reports.
So is there any way to change that, where let's say, for example, you know that there's something coming up that's important or that's relevant to the homelessness subcommittee? Is there a way to say, you know what, this is something that I should call a meeting for the homelessness subcommittee? Or are we just left at our own means of figuring it out, or like what's up, and then contacting you to do that? Because that's what I'm noticing, that the subcommittees don't really know when to meet or what's going on or how to arrange. Like,
Well, I haven't been involved in the homeless subcommittee previously, so I don't know what sort of subject matter is looked at. If there are topics that I think would be of interest or require input, I would reach out and arrange a meeting.
okay.
Or if a member was aware of something, then they could do the same.
And do we have a list handy for the subcommittees to remind us again? Or does everyone know what the name is?
May I say something? I know in the past, the way the ad hoc committees were held their meetings was because the director of the commissioners, when they saw there was a certain subject that was important to that specific ad hoc subcommittee, they would call us and we would have a meeting. And that's the way it was done in the past. I don't know whether we want to change it now or what, but we as commissioners did not hold meetings. it was through the director. And whoever follows, like Callie, he can call a meeting, and that's the way it was done before. I don't know how it is now, but that's how it's been done in the past.
And that was for the subcommittees?
Yeah.
Or just the committee? Okay.
We used to have more committees, but it's reduced down to the 3.
Oh, okay.
And homeless is the newest one.
So that we can, if something comes up that staff is aware of, we can, let the subcommittee know if there's something that the subcommittee becomes apprised of and wants to hold a meeting. They're more than welcome to. So
Independently of city staff.
yes.
So that's the way it works in most places, that there's a subcommittee, they meet independently. I don't know if this would be any different, but it sounds like you're asking for a more formal meeting.
Well, like what we meant for the
with the department head?
Yeah, what we meant for example, the capital improvements project with Mike. Mike informed us like this is an item that's important, and then we all gathered and talked about it. And the only fear I have with meeting like independently is like we were not as familiar as Kelly is, for example, what's going on in the homelessness world. So he could say, for example, Measure H, there's a big milestone coming up for Measure H. I wanted to meet with the subcommittee to talk about it. Unless we follow everything ourselves, we could call our own.
But aren't you open to the committee's questions, both of you?
Yeah.
So if we had an independent meeting, we could bring our questions to you, and you would answer them.
We could also, if we get some piece of information from the county regarding homelessness or something, we can forward it to the subcommittee members, and they can discuss amongst themselves, and then whatever questions we can help answer.
Yeah, the only
The only reason why I hesitate to have a member, because then we're not independent, they're influencing us or could influence us, and I like the independence of coming up with things ourselves and presenting it, other than them managing us.
No, yeah.
That's the benefit.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I agree. So the only worry I have is that we kind of have some sort of consistency. So I know that in the past, the homelessness subcommittee hasn't met as regularly as they would have liked to, but for me at least, the homelessness problem in the city is a big deal. There's a lot of residents that have concerns, and there's all sorts of issues, and I would imagine that the homelessness subcommittee should at least be meeting.
Who's heading the homeless committee?
She was gonna, Deborah was gonna give us
I don't have it, but I can send that in an email out to remind everybody.
So there
what
is a
committees
committee
are.
already formed?
Yeah.
Anybody here on that committee?
There's at least
Yeah, I
4
know that
members,
Cecilia and I are, but I know that there's 2 others that
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know.
It's not in the minutes, it's a prior meeting. Have them, but I will. I can email the committees and the members out to everybody tomorrow.
Yeah, the only reason I was kind of suggesting the staff-driven, I guess, organization was because that would keep us kind of on our toes.
I mean, that's the thing, you could definitely discuss with your subcommittee members, say, hey, like on a quarterly basis or whatever, however regularly you want to have a subcommittee meeting.
Yeah,
you can kind of like have them be scheduled.
Sounds good, thank you. So I guess we can work that out next meeting, hopefully have a further discussion. So next we have our commissioner reports. Anybody have any reports on anything we participated in, any events, anything that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, we went to the opening of the Samora Zoology Place, and I drove by there tonight, and I was happy to see a nice little crowd doing business with them. It's a tough place to get in and out of, and I wish them great success, and they really had a good crowd tonight, so that was nice. The other thing I'm doing, I'll bring it up now, in the upcoming events, the Historical Society has their Summer Fest, and what they do at that normally is they announce the Citizen of the Year for West Covina, And I'm kind of proud to say I am a nominee this year. So I don't expect to win, but I am going in. It's a really fun thing if anybody's interested.
And next Friday, they have their meet and greet.
Yeah, oh, that's a big one too.
We usually do that once a month or once every other month.
It's the,
At your location, right?
the first, no, it isn't. It's the first Friday of every month, the meet and greet.
Yeah.
No, the Kiwanis is meeting at Merrill Gardens.
That's what they know you had an event.
Are we able to vote for you?
The Kiwanis.
I don't think so. I don't know, but I love it, it's good.
The Kiwanis did stuff a bus at Walmart, and we got a school bus from West Covina, the district, and we stuffed the bus. We were there from 7 in the morning till 5 at night, and the donations poured in. It exceeded my highest expectation to see all of the donations that we received. I think there was $1,500 in monetary donations, and it was the day was so hot, we had to purchase ice chests to put the crayons in. It was hot. And I told my husband, I'm going in Walmart. He goes, you don't need anything. I go, I need to be cool. It was hot. So Kiwanis continues to do great things to support our children in West Covina. And so they made backpacks for everybody, for the underserved and the foster children in the system. So it's really nice to see such an outpouring of community support. So yeah.
Great.
Awesome, that's
Cool.
great, yeah. Any others?
Yeah, I went to a couple of the live band performances here, and I have to say it was really good. I'm glad our city is finally doing something for the community to come together, because that's something that we really need. Because in our city, people don't really know their own neighbors, so it's good. It was good to see both times that I went. It was full and everybody dancing and conversing with each other. So it was awesome. So we have one last one this Saturday. So
You did it like a double.
yeah, so that should be exciting.
I hate making that having so many consonants.
Yeah.
Where are they going to have it this Saturday? Right down there?
It's right down here at the.
Right here.
Yeah.
Wonderful place.
Yeah, this Saturday will be the last one.
Yeah,
It's a double header, so there's 2 bands this Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mike did mention that this year we weren't involved in the process because of last minute kind of, but next year we'll be involved.
Right.
The schedule is from 4 p.m. start at 4 p.m.
Oh, it starts at 4 this time. It's early.
Yeah, the band starts.
Yeah, so everyone go out to the parks, concert in the parks, should be a great time. I've been to many. Yeah, it's wonderful, and next year we'll get to choose the bands.
Yeah, concert share, I believe, is in January. Usually January, beginning February.
Do you know the ending time for the one this Saturday? Because the other one started at 6 and ended at 9.
It ends at 9, this one starts at 4. This
Oh,
one
okay.
starts earlier.
Okay, great.
Because there's 2 bands. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I have a question, and I don't know if I can ask it. Are we in the process of replacing Susie, or are you the replacement for Susie permanently?
I'm the interim.
Okay.
So we're gonna, there's big shoes to fill, so.
They're big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
You already got lucky.
Yeah.
Just a report. 2 meetings ago, I announced a little bit prematurely, but I was confident that it was going to go through with West Covina Unified School District. It's going to have private funding for paid externships for their students that get selected. And the vision behind this would be just to increase the abundance mindset of certain students that do not have exposure to a life beyond sometimes just a band or a couch or something like that. And so they approved it, the board approved it, and so now students are being linked to businesses to do externships paid at $15 an hour. And at the end of the externship, they receive that scholarship. And that's all been approved, and right now they're coordinating the businesses that that can host an extern. And there's a lot of businesses that have signed up. And there's also, you don't have to be a business to sign up to host an extern. Some people are just sometimes even leaders in the city, and it's just a good exposure. They need help, and then the students get to be exposed to a life beyond what they thought. So just a small example could be someone who owns a CrossFit gym, and it's a high school student that goes and volunteers or does an externship at the CrossFit gym and sees what a business owner life can look like. And it just opens their horizon to what's possible for me. And I know that was like a big thing for children, is to have that abundance mindset and kind of weed away that scarcity mindset. And so that's been formally approved, and it's in the works right now to link students that are interested with businesses that are able to host. And those students, from no money from the business and no money from the school district, are going to get paid out that scholarship. That's a $15 an hour equivalent. So I'm proud that that was approved, proud of the school district and the community. And if anybody wants printed material about that, and everybody wants to promote that so that we get more exposure to that, I think Anna Gutierrez is the point person at the school district. So that would be a good place to go.
That's great.
There was another thing too, where the family from the school district, out of luck, out of housing, it's super hot outside right now, and so we were able to get them in housing for a period of time in a motel, and then they could secure long-term housing as well. So it's just good to bring some positive points that the community here is pretty generous, and they're pretty good people all around, is what I'm finding and experiencing. So just something to report.
And what was it through when you said we for the housing? Who was the group that helped?
Oh, sometimes it's just private funding. You don't have to go through groups and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you just get stuff done without really making some fuss and getting the whole thing about it. Yeah, just get it done.
That's West Covina Unified that you're referring to?
That approved the externship, that's West Covina Unified, which I think if we play this smart, it will create a want for the other school districts, like Covina Valley, that's got a big high profile as well, and even Roland, to say, wow, they got that over there. How do we provide that for our students? And we could kind of really get proof of concept if some of these kids come out and say, that was great. In college, I'm going to now major in, I don't know, hospitality because I externed it at this hotel. You know what I mean? So I feel like these like great seeds to like plant that will create a want that can change that scarcity mindset. But I think, unfortunately, some kids are just, it's just the path. I mean, I was on that path, so it's just like that.
Does West Covina still host the Explorer program?
Police and fire.
Police and fire?
Yes.
Do you know if the city put up anything on the website yet?
No, there's nothing.
Sorry.
No, I didn't see anything on the West Covina Unified other than their board meetings are obviously public.
Right.
And it was public, but I think things are pretty low profile. But I think that's how it might be strategic in the beginning, until there's a lot of good stories to share and kind of promote.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, too, with the private funding, if you open up and you got like 300 students, it's a little bit different pool on the private funding than you open it up and you have, a group of students that have been like wanting this for some time, and then they do it well. And then you could pool on community to assist with that private funding. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's great. Any other commission reports? Okay, I just wanted to mention the National Night Out. It's on here. Many residents didn't know about it because it was kind of a forgotten event because of the COVID. So we are having National Night Out on Tuesday, August 3rd. Yeah. And so I would encourage everyone to either find out who's doing one, maybe visit. If you any of the council members, you could tag along. They're going to visit all the locations. I signed up, my neighborhood, and I think it's a great day to kind of meet people. And I think as a commission too, it would be good to kind of get ourselves out there, meet people, introduce ourselves as commissioners, make people aware of the commission. A lot of people don't know we exist. So talk to people, talk to neighbors, and yeah, and the national night, like everyone is familiar with it. It's to honor and to foster that relationship with our police department, and our fire department actually participates as well. So they might show up to a few locations, and so that's the only thing I have to report.
If I could add on, Chair? We're actually looking at setting up a kickoff event at Plaza West Covina before the different neighborhood events.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's going to be around 5:30 at Plaza West Covina. We'll be posting information on the website once that's been finalized. But
Good, that's next week, that's great.
I know.
Yeah, because we
We'll
weren't
be
sure
getting
if
that
that was-
information up as quickly as possible, but 5:30 at Plaza West Covina will be a kickoff event.
Who's the contact person for that? For the city? Who's coordinating?
So the police department coordinates it. They are neighborhood events, so they're not necessarily public events. Some are in people's homes. So it's really based in your neighborhood if there's a community event, or you can attend the kickoff at the plaza.
Yeah, I understand the structure, but is it a scheduled event? So if I was to coordinate an activity in my neighborhood, let's say, whom would I speak to so I can ensure a visit from the police department or fire department?
Through the police department, I can get you the number, but I think that, right, it's Thursday before the Tuesday, so I don't know if we can add you to the list. We'll do our best. But yeah, it's usually they ask for the contact for the events the week before, so we can finalize the itinerary, because council staff and the police department and fire will try to hit as many events as possible, but
Yeah, and I've been around for 20-something years, and I've heard about it, but I've never heard an explanation on how it works. What are the steps that need to be taken so that...
it's an application with the
It is
police
an
department.
application,
Yeah, you submit it, and then you kind of give them information on what kind of event you're going to be hosting. And then, if you know, some are open to the public, some are just for the neighborhood. And then they'll include it in the list of events, and then try to they try to go to as many events as possible in that night.
Is the kickoff public, or is this also a private sort
The
of...
kickoff at the plaza will be open to the public.
And you can come to mine if you want to. Like,
Wow, I knew you always felt that way, right?
yeah, and other commissioners as well. I have everyone's email, so I'll forward you the information if you would like to stop by ours. I have a neighborhood watch, so I'm still not sure how many people are going to show up. It might be a few, handful, it might be more, but we're going to be outside in the front yard, kind of on the street area, so it'll be open air.
Any food?
It'll be,
What I bring, right?
if we do have, it'll be like a pre-packaged food, just to keep everyone safe. So yeah, okay, so let's move on to items to be agendized. And I wanted to talk about the ones we had kind of discussed briefly, but does anyone else have anything that they wanted to agendize for the next meeting? Any topics that you have concerns about?
I would like to agendize about our bus stops.
Okay.
A topic about that. I noticed that, I don't know if I'm allowed to comment or just agendize about it.
You can comment briefly.
Okay, so I noticed that our bus stops, kind of need to be a little more updated. We've had a lot of, as the homeless issue has been arising, we have a lot of, homeless people sitting at the bus stops, and a lot of professional people that ride the bus here to downtown or just, somewhere local, don't feel comfortable going to the bus stops, and it doesn't look good for our city. So, yeah.
And is there any sort of like report or anything you would like, or you just wanted to have a discussion on it? Like, if one staff to come back with anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have like just a brief, before we agendize it, just a brief solution for the time being is maybe have some sort of signage if it's legal, that maybe the bus stop is for bus riders only, something like that, to try to prevent, just anybody just hanging out there and sitting there, making normal bus riders feel uncomfortable, or perhaps taking over the seating, stuff like that, yeah.
So is that clear on the, Cat, something as well? Do you want something to be agendized?
No, I raised my hand just as a general comment, because all of the topics being discussed are like super interesting, and all of us as residents care a lot. I think it just helps a lot if the topic being discussed is already agendized, so that like me personally, I can prepare to gather thoughts or what other people around are saying and things like that, just to make sure we keep conversations within that. Because I didn't even think about bus stops. If we started discussing it now, it's like I don't even know what I think, but like, yeah, it makes great points.
Yeah.
But once it's on the agenda and I see it on the agenda because Deb sends out the emails, then I can kind of study, read, and just kind of listen to and just get my thoughts together and be contributing in the group,
Yeah.
But then when we like go off on like little things, like today you were talking to Kelly about the San Gabriel Valley group that's going to now, I guess, run Measure H1. I haven't really studied that, but I'd love to, so I can contribute or just get my thoughts together about it, So if you put that on the agenda for next time, I'm going to come with like supported, like just to help with whatever my thoughts are,
Okay.
So it's just a general comment about agenda items.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point too. So I'm not sure if I actually asked for that, but if that could come back in the next meeting to kind of get a better understanding of the SGB cause and their homelessness efforts.
Sure.
And then maybe we can even have someone from them to present if they're available to come in, so that the burden won't be all on you. I know that they're pretty flexible, at least from what I've talked to Caitlin about, to being able to come out and talk about what they're doing. So if that could be agendized as well. Good points. If nobody else has one, I have a few, and I've sent these before, but I just wanted to talk about them publicly. So the California Parquet, if we can agendize that, and then depending on how this discussion goes on agendizing, we want to wait, like you said, for the park needs assessment. But my idea was to agendize a discussion on California Parquet. I don't know if most of you are familiar with it. It's on California Avenue, and it's this tiny little park. And it has a tiny little playset. So what I wanted to do is I agendize it just for discussion, not necessarily any sort of action item. Kind of talk about what we could do. Maybe we might have an action item, who knows, but talk about if we can come up with alternative uses for it, rather than what it is now. So there could be a lot of ideas, right? Like it could be a passive park, it could be a dog park, it could be a lot of different things. So that's what I wanted to have a discussion about. And if it turns out that, we're comfortable with the way it is, then it will remain the way it is. But just to have that discussion. And if you're not familiar with it, I would recommend driving by it.
You might get fight back from the residents there. They use that park.
And that's something that we could talk about. If we could see how much it's used. I don't see it used as much.
Really?
But, I don't know, we could kind of have some, maybe staff's insight on it. But every time I've driven by it, I don't see it really utilized. And I know that's kind of part of our playground thing, right? At some point, we're going to look at putting a new playground there with the Measure 8 money.
Right.
So I don't know if we want to put $100,000, $200,000 into a playground that might not be used. But who knows?
I think if you build it, they would use it. Folks would use it.
Yeah, hopefully. And I wouldn't mind if it was either. I kind of wanted to have a discussion. Because I know that the Del Norte Dog Park is really popular. And I know there's a lot of apartments around California Parquet. And, a lot of those people might have dogs, and they might not have an area area to take their dog, so, that might be something that we could look into. And it's cheaper, I think, too, than the playground. I think we would just require a fence, right, and maybe a water fountain. But yeah, that, if we could agendize it, and if not, then.
Okay, so I think one of the last meetings before the pandemic with the commission, it was to do a parks need assessment, and host a meeting to look at comprehensively all the parks within the city. So I don't know if you'd want to do that. Look at alternative uses for the California Parkette as part of a park need assessment meeting that does need to occur.
And what was the date that we would probably do that?
We would have to schedule it. We don't have a scheduled date for that.
Okay. I would say that if it's within reason, within a reasonable time, yeah. But if it's sometime next year.
Okay. Staff will go and look at and see what we can schedule, and then if not, we'll agendize the Parkette.
And is that,
okay?
do you remember if that's in the cycle with the county's process for Measure A, like the reassessment, parking assessment?
We're supposed to update each year in January about our items. I'd have to look in to see when they require the needs assessments, how often they require that.
Okay. Good. So another item I wanted to agendize was a potential community service. I was thinking about this. Potential community service like event that we could do as a commission. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts at that meeting. I guess we can't discuss now, but that was the intent of the item to be agendized, to talk about potentially doing something together as a commission, whether it's feeding the homeless, maybe clean up, litter, something that we could kind of advertise and get other people to engage with us, meet people, meet the community, and do something positive as a commission. There's a lot of ideas that we can kind of come up with and discuss.
Chairman Torres, if I could have Deborah just elaborate on, we do have 2 recognitions that the city does. I don't know if you want to.
I think that's separate from
what
he's
you're proposing
asking for right now.
Yeah, what I'm proposing is our kind of our own.
Kind of doing a community service cleanup or something like that. We used to do
something that we could do as a commission.
Oh, okay, like an event.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
like a community
Sorry.
service event, and we could
Come out
do
and meet
it
the
in a
commissioners.
business. We could do a lot of things. That will be the discussion. I think about ideas maybe within the next month, and then we'll discuss it. Everyone can kind of like idea of what we're doing. But I think it would be really cool because you would get us out there.
Last month, we had 2 city councilmen get out there with paint buckets and do nice things, and it would be fun to participate. But also, we didn't do it because of the pandemic, but we've had West Covina cleanup in May.
Yeah, usually it's done in May.
But we don't
with
want to
that
wait,
thing.
we don't want to wait until May. But I love the idea of us getting out there as a group, and, the entire reason I'm on this committee is to make my city better, not to fight and get in dog fights. I want to make my city better. I want to make it a better place for kids and people to live and grow up. And so giving back is what I'm interested in doing and not fighting. So you got my whole support.
Thank you. And then the next item was I know, Paulina, you mentioned the potential senior recognition spotlight program. We had something kind of in place, but my idea was to see if we could have a program of our own, which is the commission's, sole program where we would spotlight, look at the community, find seniors that I think we could spotlight, maybe their history. Obviously, they would have to be okay with it, but we could have some sort of spotlight and talk about one of our seniors and what they've done in the community, maybe their history, and kind of give a spotlight to them, and maybe even present at the city council meeting, depending on our availability. But I thought that would be something that would be beneficial. So, but like you said, if it overlaps or if maybe it's redundant.
Do you mind speaking about
the one? It's my turn. That we do a volunteer of the year every year. During the pandemic, we did not do it. And the county does a senior volunteer of the year, which we choose from our community. We nominate people from, sometimes it's people that work at the senior center, or because we do have senior volunteers at the senior center, or just anybody in the community that anybody wants to nominate as a senior. That's done in January. The county then does an event where they have a dinner and recognize them and choose one from each city, where they and their family can come and receive the award. And then we do a citizen of the volunteer of the year for community services and for senior services, independently of the county. So that is usually done in conjunction with the January one, because it actually used to be done during the fair, actually, when we participated with the fair.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because they could go and be a part of the fair for our fair day. Yeah. But we are not we're not doing that with the fair anymore. So we were just doing it throughout the year. I think the last time we did it was June of 18. June of 18. Where anybody can nominate anybody, but with our issue with that was we were getting very, very minimal nominations. But we do put it on our website, we send it out, and the email notification, we announce it at commissions and council to go fill out a nomination, and the community nominates whoever they want.
And that's what I was thinking, that this one would be a little different. It wouldn't necessarily be an award, I guess, or an annual. It would be a spotlight program. So then, for example, every meeting we meet 6 times a year, right? So 6 in that year we can spotlight 6 seniors, for example. Have maybe a page prepared for that person, invite them to the meeting. They can invite their family or friends, and then we could talk, about them. They're an outstanding citizen of the city, and highlight all their accomplishments, their history, and do that at every meeting. And I know that it might be difficult at the beginning to find people maybe, but I think if we do the right outreach, like at the senior center when it reopens, talk to people, talk to the seniors, they might say, hey, this person is a good person to spotlight, or oh, this person was in Vietnam, or this person did this. We'll be able to, I think, once we get it going, I think it'll be pretty simple.
I think we do something similar to that in the Voice newsletter that goes out in the senior center. So we do highlight where we recognize seniors in there.
Why not discuss the senior congregate meals program? Have you scratched that permanently, or you can discuss that?
It's still happening.
Yeah, it's
just not
ongoing.
in person.
Huh?
We're still delivering meals to seniors every Monday.
Yeah, but I mean, the old program was at the same senior center.
We can discuss it after, but we're working with, at this time, we're not doing the congregate meal program in person. It's all delivery or drive-through.
So then, that's for the
Congregating is very important. Meal delivery programs.
Was Covina Discovery still exist?
Not currently.
And then I know I brought this up way back when we met for the first time, but I never agendized it. But I was wanting to talk about better how we can improve community outreach and community engagement. So that's an item that I wanted to talk about, how we can better do that. Maybe produce some sort of plan, like an actual document that it's a community engagement plan, or something formal where we could do a better job with community engagement. Because I know that a lot of you I don't know if anyone attended the 4th of July event. I attended the 4th of July event, and it was poorly attended. It was a good event, but it was poorly attended based on what they were anticipating. And then I've also been to other events throughout the years that kind of haven't had the outreach or the communication that would have been more successful. So that's kind of the next thing we have to kind of see if we can do a better job of communicating and outreach.
Thank you.
And then the last one, I know this is a big issue with people, if we could talk about the bathrooms in the parks and how we could improve the condition of those in the interim. Not necessarily a big project where we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to I guess, remodel or demolish and put new. Just something we could do and talk about what solutions we could do, whether if it's even community service related, like if we could do things, or there's a program we could put in place, or maybe just make a simple change on how they're lit, or maybe paint, like I have a community service event where we paint the restrooms, but that's something I constantly hear from a lot of residents, that the conditions of our bathrooms in the parks are just very poor, and it kind of distracts and it kind of dissuades people from using the parks. So it's not necessarily like a capital improvement, big renovation. It's more of a addressing the maintenance and seeing how we can better improve the aesthetics of all our bathrooms.
I believe some of them are in the CIP project, but, I mean.
I know you mentioned Cameron, right?
Mhm.
We're in the process of remodeling that one.
So that one will be done by the end of the year. Probably sooner, but, yeah. You know how construction be.
Yeah, I do play softball at Cameron Park, and those bathrooms are, they're pathetic. They are, I mean, a few weeks ago when I went in to use it, and it was blood on the floor from the entrance all the way into the urinal, and they're really bad. And also to where the diamonds are, where we play softball, those restrooms are pretty bad too. They need replacement of the sinks, the faucets, the toilets, and they're horrible. You got to go in there and look at it. I went into a Cameron Cortez Park, and those restrooms, they're the exact same layout, and those are clean. But the ones at Cameron are just, they're disgusting. They are.
Yeah, no, we're working on getting
Yes,
them fixed.
yeah, that's great, yeah.
And you mentioned restrooms by the baseball field as well?
Yeah, but the diamonds, where the baseball field are?
Those aren't part of it, right?
No, I don't.
Those aren't part of the improvements?
No, we're looking at the ones that
Just the ones are, yeah, right by the parking lot out, yes, right.
Okay. And with that, next is upcoming events. I don't know if anyone wanted to talk from the staff about them, but I think we've spoken on a few already.
Yeah. The August 3rd City Council meeting is canceled in honor of National Night Out. We are having, looking to have a special City Council meeting on August 10th. So that means the Planning Commission meeting for August 10th will be canceled. And the next City Council meeting after that will be August 17th.
Great. Anyone else have any comments, anything? Nope. Okay. This meeting is adjourned at 8:20. Thank you.